to call the match. Scheinberg has smartly called the match. Ariel Sky is hurt.
And it looks like Ariel Sky has definitely been injured and cannot continue this match.
Let's get an EMT to ringside. Ariel Sky is hurt right now. Let's get an EMT to ringside, please. The match has been called by Ben Scheinberg. The match ends in a no contest.
Certainly not the way that we wanted this to wind up, David, but our performers' safety is number one. It's paramount here with Wild Women of Wrestling.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast and your host, Mr. Green. Thank you for tuning in and taking on another episode with me as we go down to the land of WoW and do a recap of their last episode as of this recording. Of course, if you tuned in, you very likely saw the thumbnail. I would imagine so. You're on YouTube. It's a very visual product. And so you know that there was an injury that took place. I don't think I'm spoiling anything or breaking any new ground here. For that matter, if you haven't seen it, you can find the match. It's not like it's hidden. It's on the WoW YouTube channel. It's not like it's some sort of gnarly, spectacular injury like you're going to go, ugh, you know, you got to turn away. But it can be uncomfortable depending on how you view neck injury and concussions and, things like that. I would hope that is not a concussion. And the person I'm talking about in this particular instance is Ariel Sky. But we will get to all of that. I think I have to try to maintain some order, and I'll try to get through it as fast as we can so we can go right off into the review of WoW. But there's it's not quite as deep as it was a week ago, but we have other wrestling news, and I think we should address some of those things. One, I am going to suggest to you that you go and you know what, matter of fact, I might have to take the article from Fightful and put it on the WPN site so it'll be easier for you. If you see a link here, that means I did everything that I just thought about right now. But there is a young lady, a wrestler that works under the name of Rachel Rose, who apparently was released, shall we say, from Ring of Honor. I'm so used to ROH. ROW is what I wanted to get out, and Reality of Wrestling is the promotion. So because the contents of this article is so long, because Fightful really, and I got to give them credit, Fightful did a fantastic job detailing as much information about the situation as they could. I will try to summarize it, but I'm going to suggest that you read this on your own time. It is fairly lengthy. It's not like it's going to take you days to do it, but it is a very detailed account of what Rachel Rose says led to her departure, or as they title it, her firing from Booker T's Reality of Wrestling promotion. And it stems from her being stalked. And I think that is where the crux of the issue lies. And I am not trying to put blame or fault on her, Booker T, or the promotion of Reality of Wrestling. However, I can certainly understand how Rose would feel with just some kind of way about how she was cut loose from that. So the way I understand it, and I'm going to go reread this again when I get off. But the way that I understand it, Rachel Rose had a stalker who if I've read this correctly, is someone who worked there also at some point in time. Reed is his last name. I'm trying to see if I can find the first name here. But they have him listed as Reed throughout the entirety of this article that Fightful wrote. So in any case, whoever this person is claimed that Rose had manipulated him. This is a quote. Manipulated him into thinking she was single despite it being widely known in the company that she was in a long-term relationship. And yes, this person apparently was, or I can't imagine that he would still be Russ. Sean Reed, that's his name, Sean Reed. I can't imagine that anybody would pick him up and he would still be wrestling somewhere after displaying this type of behavior. But stranger things have happened, so let's continue. So anyway, his statement is that he was led to believe that she was something that she's not. And apparently, as I understand it, he had been showing up in places that he knew that she would be. Wrestlers go out to eat afterwards, at a certain bar/restaurant. He just appears there, or stuff like that. And then at some point, there were threats. This is not something that is uncommon in these type of situations when the stalker, I guess we'll call him for lack of a better term, feels rejected or what have you. Then the result or the solution in their mind is just to, I'll just hurt everybody. One of the things here, or one of the incidents that was brought up, is Rose is saying that she communicated her situation on a number of occasions with reality of wrestling officials, having Reed removed from the venue and things like that. She was told to notify the police, and she had done that as well. Booker T, as the article states, I'll give this paragraph and maybe one other one. Booker T was not aware of the situation, or Reed himself encountered Reed in the parking lot. The claim from the talent at Reality of Wrestling was that Reed had made threats on himself, as well as implied to Booker directly he considered attacking others at the school, with some claiming that he mentioned shooting up the venue. We're told that Booker walked Reed back into the venue after he had been ejected, in what he claimed was an effort to calm Reed down and prevent him from doing anything crazy. Okay, so I don't think anything is necessarily wrong with that. He was trying to diffuse the situation, but I do think the end result is probably where she is having she being Rachel Rose. I think that is where she is having the issues here, because in her view, she's being punished for somebody who was stalking her. So I hope that's not the case. Like I said, I am absolutely suggesting to anybody that's listening to this that wants to know more about it, you need to go and read this report that Fightful has listed. Again, very detailed, and has quotes from Rose. They did reach out to one of the officials in Reality of Wrestling. They reached out to Booker T. They did say that Booker responded. The officials did not, particularly the one that suggested that Sean Reed go and train/wrestle in another promotion that was listed as Premier. I think the problem with that is that I believe Rose had said that she worked for Premier, and everybody knew that. So it didn't really help things. So if we scroll down here to where she was released, and I use the term released, It was largely listed as again, as I understand this, as a means to nullify the situation. Yeah, so that's the only way I can really describe that. Here's a paragraph that's kind of addressing that. Rose told Fightful that Reality of Wrestling claimed that there was a trespass warrant for Sean Reed after December, but that the police confirmed in the report that wasn't the case. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. That right there is disappointing, especially if they say, "Oh yeah, we got a police warrant for his arrest," and they never did it. Because apparently, Fightful reached out to the police and they said, "No, there is no arrest warrant for him." So that's very disappointing. But I'll continue. Rose claims that she was told by ROW they would have armed security and cameras to help prevent issues, which she says also didn't end up happening. Rose said that upon speaking with Booker T after the incident, that she was fired from Reality of Wrestling, which she felt wasn't justified. She felt as if she was effectively cut from the company due to having a stalker in which she had warned the company about. Those familiar with the situation claim she was blamed for causing the problematic personality to be around, even though he'd been warned numerous times to stay away. Fightful made contact with Booker T, and he did confirm that Rose was fired from ROW, citing internal reasons that he wouldn't elaborate on. He also confirmed that the incident at Sturgarden Tavern took place, and it was of his opinion that the ROW talent should have distanced themselves from Sean Reed instead of confronting him. That was something they addressed earlier in the article, so just so you know. Continuing on. ROW talent present and past that we spoke to said that Reed was well aware that the talent would be there and believed that he did it intentionally as a result. It being showing up there unannounced and uninvited. As like I said earlier, apparently, and I know some wrestling schools do this just for camaraderie's sake. I mean, Robert Gibson's APCW used to do that quite a bit. You get finished with the show, everybody puts everything up. Hey guys, we're going out to so-and-so, and and everybody kind of converges on there and they celebrate the great night they had. So this being a thing, them going to a particular location after the show, not surprising. Also not surprising that if you had somebody there that is familiar with that, they may it's a public location. They can't stop them from being there. They could have gone to a different place, but yeah, they can't just stop them from showing up at the restaurant. Now I gotta see where I left off. Sorry. We can confirm that we heard this story from. I think I need to go back a little bit more. Sorry. Booker insisted that the timing of this story emerging was due to a meeting at the January 13th Reality of Wrestling show that related to loyalty among the wrestlers. We can confirm that we heard of this story after Booker T and Reality of Wrestling told their talent that they didn't want their wrestlers working other independent companies in Houston. Booker was also curious as to why it took a year for the story to emerge, which Rose said was because she feared possible retaliation from Reed and finally felt safe sharing the story. Booker called the issue a non-story and pointed to Reality of Wrestling's track record of not having similar stories emerge from their company. This is in quotes. Booker screamed and cursed at me when he arrived on the scene while I was talking to the police at the December incident that this was my fault and I'm the reason people got hurt and arrested, Rose said. It's a lot that's going on there. It's really a lot that's going on there. I will finish up with her last quote here so we can move on. Rose told Fightful, "Overall, I hope what comes out of this is Booker, along with the people placed in charge at his school, implement procedures and protections to ensure all threats are taken seriously in the future. Should they continue to not make the students' safety their priority, I hope at the very least any women who train there or are looking for a place to train see this and are able to make an educated decision before they put their safety into the hands of Reality of Wrestling." that is a very, in my view, very telling statement of how she feels about the company, because it's not like she said any school. She named reality wrestling by name. No, nobody should be feeling uncomfortable and threatened and, unsafe going to a wrestling school or any place for that matter. I hope that whatever it is that's going on with this, it gets straightened out. I would imagine that Rachel Rose will probably be fine. She seemed like an indie standout. Her losing reality of wrestling, I do not feel is going to damage her personally, considering that she's already appeared on, a couple of indie promotions throughout Texas, AEW Dark, and, of course, by proxy of AEW Dark, Ring of Honor TV. So she probably will continue on and do fine and have a career. She just may not be able to work with reality wrestling any longer, but or you know what, and maybe she will, because wrestling makes for strange bedfellows. Sometimes it's time, it's distance, it's the situation's changing. So she may just need to leave and float around a little bit and go to a couple of other promotions, build up the name of Rachel Rose. And then by the time, she rolls back around to Houston, they may be begging her to come back. Who knows? But the important part of this story here is that a young lady was being stalked and made to feel uncomfortable. And for whatever reasons, the management decided that it was easier to cut her loose rather than do something else. And I will reiterate, this is the surface level of this story. I suggest reading it in full before you make your decisions, or how you feel. How dare Booker T? Because it could be something deeper than that. I didn't decipher that myself when I read through it, but you may. It is. It's not an easy decision or easy thing to be the boss. It's not. But at the same time, and I will admit, this is totally hindsight. If I were in his shoes, I probably would have said something along the lines of, we have to put you on hiatus until we get the situation under control, and I'll pay you for it. And I will suggest to you that you go and wrestle in any other place that you can go. Matter of fact, I would suggest if you can get out of the state to build your name, go ahead and do it. I will personally sign a letter of recommendation for you, because his name and recommendation would go a long way. Let's just be honest. If he said, no, this girl's ready to rock and roll right now, there's promoters that would leap at that. That's the least I think. And this is just me talking now. Like I said, I wasn't in that situation. I've had time to mull over it. That's the best I think they could do. If he felt like she had to go, I don't know if I would list it as a firing rather than let's try to get you someplace else and get you out of this dangerous situation so that you can continue to do what you need to do. The door is left open for you. I will pay you until we can get you situated someplace else. And at the same time, once we do have it under control, and if you do get out there, you'll probably make a bigger name for yourself. Then you can come back and then we can make some money. So, that's just my 2 cents on that situation. Former WWE Divas champion Maryse has revealed that she's been diagnosed with borderline ovarian tumors. That is disappointing to hear, but fortunately, I think that she has taken care of that situation. She did post on her, what was this? Was this Twitter? Well, Twitter, X. Whatever social media is, which one this is. She posted a photo of her and her surgical scars. Looks like these things were removed. And she has a long story that's listed there also, so I'm not going to read all of that. Needless to say, it is a very thankful post. We will put it that way. She seems like she is grateful and thankful. She went to a OGBYN and found that these things were there, and apparently she got it removed. So good on her. I hope that it remains fine. But the first thing that she has there is that not all superheroes wear capes. Here's a superhero I want to take the time to highlight. Her name is Thais Alibat. Good grief! I'm not even gonna try to read that. I apologize to this doctor because I will butcher your name. But anyway, this is a post of thanks from Maryse for this being found and taken care of, because apparently this is a form of precancer. So I can imagine that this was very scary and very she's probably very, very grateful that someone was there to find, treat, and take care of this. So good for you, Maryse. I'm sure her wrestling days are done, but this is far beyond wrestling. So yeah, good on her that she has this, and her superhero who wasn't in a cape saved her. Not a real big story, but the final match in TNA for Trinity took place. Her tagging along with Jordynne Grace. I believe I brought that up before, but I like Trinity, and I've grown to enjoy TNA. I keep saying that because every time I watch, I'm like, man, this is a good show. I really hope that the removal of Scott D'Amore does not change this. Now I'm nervous about it. I know the next probably 2 shows are still underneath the D'Amore regime. So I hope that they don't screw this up. They were doing so well. They were doing so well and building so much momentum. They were never going to overtake AEW, and they were never going to overtake WWE, but it was just nice to have just a really good quality wrestling program. And they removed the silliness, for the bulk of it. Like, I didn't see anything about anybody being resurrected from the dead or reincarnated or teleporting or going to another dark dimension or whatever. They actually had wrestling, and the wrestling that made sense. I couldn't praise it enough. Anyhow, I don't know if I want to go into a whole lot of time on it, and I probably won't, because there's so many people that's covering this right now. But I don't think any podcast, mine included, especially as it relates to it affecting the women on their roster, I don't think any podcast can talk about this or not talk about it. Vince McMahon and his sexual predatory practices on individuals, including the female wrestlers. The reason I am bringing this up now is because Ashley Massaro's name has been brought into the news lately because of all of these things. Her being a notable alleged, we will stick with legality here, alleged victim to all of these things. One of her best friends appeared on a news outlet and started telling the host of that show, what is News Nation, not a channel that I watch. I didn't even know it existed, quite honestly. But somebody posted a clip, and she talked about Ashley and the situation that she was facing. Did she believe that all of these things kind of led into the depression that pushed her into suicide? Not even knowing the woman, I sat here and I was like, yeah, it probably did. And of course, she feels the same way. And when you hear these stories, it is heartbreaking. There is no other way to put that. It is absolutely heartbreaking that not only did this take place, but the company that you're basically putting your trust in has decided that, well, no, our relationship with the military is more important than you being assaulted. So don't say anything about it because it might hurt our chances to maintain this partnership. That's disgusting. What's even more so is that when she goes into talking about how Ashley said that she was called by Vince McMahon at some point in the night and whatnot, and then she asked Kevin Dunn what should she do, basically, and he just said, tell him that you're sick, and then just show up for TV, which would imply to me that this is something that he being Kevin Dunn was somewhat aware of. I'm not going to say that he knew fully, but he was probably somewhat aware that Vince has habits of doing things like this. If I were a guessing man, he probably has some inclination that, yeah, Vince likes to just tell me sick. But unfortunately, the rejection of that led to what Massaro described as Vince suddenly decided to start writing her promos, which were, in her words, designed to, well, I'm not going to say in her words because I don't remember it verbatim. So let me rephrase that. I am going to paraphrase. Basically, those promos were there to sabotage her, which, by all stories that we've heard about Mr. McMahon over the years, I don't know if I would find any of that shocking, that he would be petty like that. I mean, I've watched the WWF grow into the WWE, and I've seen, especially once he got into Mr. McMahon years, he would do things like that just, in his world, just to get even. The IRS comes after him. Okay, I'll make a heel wrestler called Erwin Arsheister. Things like that. Like in his mind, that gets even. My biggest stars, Hogan and Savage, leave me. Okay, then I'll do the Nacho Man and the Huckster. JR's having a colonoscopy, so we'll do the Mr. Heine skit, and I'll stand here and pull crap out of his butt. It just things like that. And I mean, those are just the ones that came off the top of my head. There are more. There's so much more. Like, John Cena and who was it? Was it Jericho, I think? But Cena and somebody else had to go approach Vince McMahon about, look, you don't need to have Lita do a live sex celebration on TV. By all accounts, he was kind of dead set on, no, y'all actually need to do it. This is what people have read, including me. So, a sad, terrible situation. And I can only imagine that being involved in that had some level of effect towards how it ultimately ended. Keep in mind that Massaro was a mother. I do not know how old her child would have been at the time. But you have to be in a very, very bad place to come to the conclusion that my child no longer needs me, or they'll be better off without me, or whatever puts you in the mindset that you could feasibly decide to remove yourself from that child's growth. And I'm not pointing a finger at it. I'm just saying that it's a very hard battle to fight. The reason I say that is because one of my best friends, he had that. Now, what he had in his situation, unfortunately, it did not seem that she had in hers. In that his wife, and I love you, B. I'm not going to put out any names. But his wife, she basically had him taken away to a hospital, and upon condition of the doctors getting him under control, he was going to stay there because she was like, no, she saw and in fairness to him, he's diagnosed bipolar, so I don't know if Massaro is in the same category. I'm just using this as an example of when people get into these dark places like that. Sometimes it's hard. It becomes very, very hard to see that light that you're trying to get towards. And the fact that he was married, had a wife there, the fact that he had 2 daughters there, in that moment, it didn't matter anymore. He was just done. And he was strongly considering doing some drastic stuff, which is why she's like, nope, that's not happening. She took him away and left him in, of course, it wasn't just, here you go and I'll see you when you're done. I mean, she was a loving wife, and she did what she could to keep him there. And he's still here today because of that, because of her. He has her to thank his life for. Ashley Massaro, unfortunately, did not have someone there to do that. Or if she did, they didn't see the signs or whatever reasons preventing them from it. I'm sure her friends and her family regret that every day. But the more of this that comes out, I mean, because she released this letter, and you have to find it. You have to find and read it. But she released this letter just detailing all these terrible things on top of what we've already heard about Vince McMahon. This just makes it worse. And I'll leave it on that, is that I hope, because I'm sure she wasn't the only one. I'm positive she wasn't the only one. He just decided that day that Ashley, I got to have her. There's been some other people in that locker room and that women's roster who have either dealt with, rejected, or otherwise encountered Vince McMahon in these scenarios. I would tend to believe that. And I think that this story is only going to just, snowball more. So anyhow, is there any other wrestling news that's in the women before we go in there? Outside of, and I do not watch Ring of Honor because it's behind a paywall. I've not had to ever pay for Ring of Honor up until this point, and I do not intend on changing that now. But they have a Ring of Honor women's TV title bracket tournament, and the brackets have been revealed. So, for those of you who are somewhat interested in the bracketing of Ring of Honor, and that I don't know why they having a women's TV World Championship to begin with. Anyhow. It appears that it's going to be Kiera Hogan taking on her partner, Diamante. Billy Starks going against one of the Renegade twins. I believe that's Robin. Mercedes Martinez going against Trish Adora. Viva Vam taking on Abaddon. That's where she's been now. Okay. Rachel Ellering against legit Layla Hirsch. Red Velvet, another one from AEW that's kind of migrated to Ring of Honor. I can't even see who that is. I may have to skip that one because the print is so small I can't tell. J-Rod has been eliminated by Queen Aminata. And who is that? That is Taya Valkyrie. And again, I will apologize because I cannot see who that. Oh, Sussy Love. That's who that is. All right. So I'm going to go with Taya Valkyrie in that one. It'll be interesting if Love gets over, but Sussy Love. And, Sandra Moon. That's who I couldn't see. Red Velvet taking on Sandra Moon. So they have a bracketed tournament. It's an interesting set of brackets, but yeah, it's a bracketed tournament. And I will say this. If there's one thing that AEW / Ring of Honor / Tony Khan is good about doing, even if he overdoes it, is tournaments. He overdoes the tournaments, but I don't expect for Kiera Hogan to get to the second round, get bumped off, and then just re-enter herself in the first. Yeah, I don't think anything stupid like that. You'd have to be an idiot to do something like that. I can't imagine what moron would make a tournament, put brackets on the screen, and decide that, well, they just got out. Well, it's a fluid tournament. They could just pop back in it. That would just take the act of a complete imbecile. Speaking of that, I think we have to go into the review for Women of Wrestling. And by the way, one last note. Ash by Elegance is set for her in-ring debut on February 22nd. So it's right around the corner. Ash. And I will also admit that her little personal hype man announcer, I found him very entertaining. So for those who thought that Dana Brooke didn't get an opportunity and maybe she'll be able to produce something else elsewhere, now's your chance. Go find TNA Wrestling and watch the debut of Ash. I will be looking at it myself. So we are now going into the review of the show, and I think it's fair to say that this show has a large shadow over it, which sucked the air out of the show in and of itself. But we will get into that, and I will try to do a fair review despite the fact that they had this big incident that took place like right at the beginning of it. So this air date was February 10th, 2024. Episode 74. Seasonally speaking, that'll be 222. And the title of the episode is Aussie, 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 Oi, Oi, Oi. Very witty. The first segment was Abilene Maverick kicking off the show. I wrote down that Nigel Zane was announced as David McClain's sidekick. It's not really important, but I just found that funny. I was like, the sidekick. Oh, okay. I don't know if I want to be his sidekick because I am your co-host. So cut me some slack. But anyhow, no, that wasn't anything important. I just felt like it was worth bringing up for my amusement. The commentators recap on how Maverick won the championship. A "You suck" chant starts during her promo. David McClain, while she's in the ring, attempted to cut a promo, and the crowd is going, "You suck," which I'm completely assuming that one of them little hype guys in the wild shirts on the side is getting the crowd started up doing that. But I don't know that to be true. That's just my guess. But David McClain gets up and reinforces to the crowd, "Be silent. She's trying to talk," or whatever the case. And I wrote down, I was like, okay, is he a heel announcer or not? He shouldn't be doing that. Why would David McClain, as the commentator, get up on the behalf of for all intents and purposes, the lead heel of the promotion, and then basically chastise the crowd for saying "you suck"? I didn't understand. I was like, why would he do that? Every week, I make some statement about David McClain needing to trim down the things that he does, and that he should be an unbiased party to this situation. When he does things like this, it is not unbiased. He is now enforcing for Abilene Maverick. And it's not like he did it in some sort of sarcastic way to try to encourage the crowd to keep going. Because we've seen that. Not here, not on WOW, but we've seen that. We've said, okay, guys, settle down. She hates it when you say you suck, so let's not do that. It wasn't like that. It was like he was telling her, hey, shut up. They might as well have just said it. So if that was what he was intending to do, he didn't do it well. And if he was doing it to try to aid Abilene Maverick, then it doesn't make any sense. He is supposed to be an unbiased party. That is how David McClain had been, well, more or less. He had been presented that way. So I don't know why it would just suddenly change here and why he would get up for her. And then she's like, "Thank you, David." So it all blended into like he was her personal ring announcer or something. That's not something he needs to be doing. That should be cut out. But this is also what happens, when you are the top of the food chain in your own company, and you can just make decisions like that at random. Like, all right, well, I'm gonna yell at the people. It didn't do anything for me, and it just seemed out of place. Before I continue, I will say this about a lot of the review that I give. Oftentimes, it is leaned on how much sense does it make in the WoW universe. The universe and the rules that they set, how much sense does this make within that universe? Very rarely do I get on there for just the match unless the match is just horribly bad or they do some egregious thing within it that you have to address. Somebody taking a move wrong or botching this or why did they pull this out? Things like that didn't really work within the context of what was going on, which more on that later when we get to the tag team match of the Truckers and Miami Sweet Heat. But it's not a case of, hey, this person sucks and that person sucks and why are you doing this? There's a disconnect with continuity for a multitude of reasons, I'm sure. And then there's a disconnect in what certain people are doing and how they're doing it. And David McLane is included in that. Rather than him being a backdrop to the situation, when he decides to make his presence known, he becomes the forefront of it. Forces himself out. Like no one asked him to get up and do that. He just got up because a wrestling crowd started chanting, "You suck." I mean, just think about it. Because a pro wrestling crowd decided to start chanting to the heel that you suck. The lead commentator, the matchmaker, the general manager, the executive producer, the lead interviewer, he got up and decided, hey, guys, be quiet. She's trying to talk. She's silent. So, no. That should not be happening. Going forward. Now, I'm sure they're not going to listen to me, but it shouldn't be happening going forward. So anyhow, the promo is essentially there just to push the main event. The main event being Abilene Maverick giving the title shot to Princess Aussie, which honestly has no fire to it whatsoever. If I didn't watch this match or this episode, I would have never known that Princess Aussie was getting a title shot. There was no build to this. There was nothing that was set up for like, I got to get my shot back or this, that, and the other. None of those things happened. It was just, and tonight, fans, it's Princess Aussie versus Abilene Maverick. Maybe they put it into the last episode in the little slate that they do that leads into the next week. But outside, and I don't even think it was in that, quite honestly. But outside of that, I'm going to give it a benefit of the doubt that they said that he did. But outside of that, there was no build to this. It just was. It just was a match. So it was hard to get into it. But again, more on that later. Next segment, the segment of infamy here. It is the Brat Pack taking on what WoW has labeled them as the new Team Spirit. That was ridiculous. Now, I don't think they said it on the show, but yeah, if you go on the YouTube page, that's how they list them as the new Team Spirit. Yeah, okay, fine. This version of Team Spirit has Pep Riley, Sasha Sparks, and Ariel Sky, with Coach Campanelli now acting as the manager. And, of course, the Brat Pack is Lil J Boogie, BK Rhythm, Gigi Gianni. So before we go into the match, I want to say something about J Boogie, because she actually is a dancer. I know it's shocking to me too, but she actually is a dancer. Jalen Aguilar is her name. And she has a dance reel that she has with some routines, stuff that she's done in dance studios and things like that. How she can dance this well there and be so bad at it on WoW is mind-blowing. And I'm going to assume that it will probably get better as time goes on, but if WoW had any willingness to keep her credibility as a dancer alive, they would have never shown her that dance off that she had with Chantella Chella on their show. They would have never shown that because that didn't show her in the best light whatsoever. Can she dance if you go and look at her other stuff? Yes. Yes, she can. It's almost like two different people. Now, granted, that's in a dance studio. Her as Lil J Boogie is in a ring. And it's probably not the most conducive environment for her to be doing that type of stuff. If I were going to say, let's showcase J Boogie as a dancer, then I'm going to set up the segment where she can do that. Not necessarily in a ring unless we can get her to do this in the ring and she can be efficient at it. Otherwise, I don't want her doing it because first impressions last. And the first impression that they had her, not only did they let her get in there and stumble over herself dancing, they put it on camera. And they didn't edit it down. They didn't say, do it again, and we'll just cut in the other one. You know, this was shot in December. They had weeks to be able to fix that. And truthfully, most people would have never known if they just said, hey, go back in there and do your dance number. We'll just cut it in or whatever the case may be. Or get the referee to tell her, do the spot again. And be smooth this time. Or something. But I felt it important to bring that up. That because I gave her a hard time about that, and I still don't. And all due respect to Jalen, I will give respect that she is a dancer as Jalen Aguilar. As Lil J Boogie, there's something that needs to be fixed. So make of that what you will. Anyway, this match probably went all of like 3.5 minutes, maybe 4. Not long at all before, they had problems. This was supposed to have been a tournament match for the Lackluster Trios Championship because that thing is taking a back seat to all sorts of crap. It's taking a backseat to injury. It's taking a backseat to infighting in groups. It's taking a backseat to new members being thrown in. The championship or the tournament and the trophy do not seem to be the thing that is driving this tournament. It's just all those little things around it. So BK Rhythm does her normal opening rap. And, there's really nothing else to be said about that. This match also is now got a second person debuting in Sasha Sparks. We already had Pep Riley have her debut in a 6-person tag, so now we got somebody else who's having a debut in a 6-person tag. And that's a hard hill to climb just on its own. We're going to debut you with 5 other people in the ring. It's hard to get this across why we care about Sasha Sparks or why we should care about Pep Riley when they're just part of this conglomerate or this group of people. So, anyhow, why you would debut a new person mid-tournament, and that's the other thing. It's not like she came in at the beginning. They just tossed her in now. Every match that Team Spirit is going to have a different lineup of Team Spirit members. That much I think we can pretty much settle on. They're heading in that direction. Every time that they've been in this tournament, just they're going to swap and switch. This is supposed to be the babyface team. And they haven't instituted any Freebird rule, but, I guess whatever. It's not like babyfaces haven't used it before, but we will see. Sasha Sparks works as JC Love on the Independents. She doesn't work as a cheerleader, mind you, but she works as a just a standard wrestler and probably has a little bit more of an edge to her. I listened to her do one of her promos as JC Love, and I was like, well, this is far better than anything I saw her do on WoW just in this minute of her talking. It was a far more natural thing rather than when we saw her as Sasha Sparks show up there and basically just kiss Coach's butt in a nondescript cheerleader. And that's the only reason that she got that, because she did work as a cheerleader somewhere. So I'm sure Dave McClain fixated on we'll just add you in the team spirit. JC Love has already been on NWA television. She's wrestling pretty well, I think, in most of Florida. So not super experienced, but probably better than some of the other people that they have there. From what I can tell, I think her wrestling journey started in 2021. So I think we can put her at a solid 2 years worth of work that she has underneath her. Unfortunately, this match is not the match to illustrate that. Pep Riley, on the other hand, is not a wrestler at all from what I can see. She's a stunt woman. So I'm sure that she's willing to take the bumps and the bruises and, the possible hurt that would come along with wrestling. But as far as wrestling is concerned, on its own, she doesn't have that background. She is just, I don't want to put it that way because that minimizes it, but she is a stunt woman / actress. That goes back to everything that's been said about a lot of the people that's on WoW. You can teach people to do the moves. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will make a good wrestler. Because are they going to think about this in terms of what would I be doing if this was real? What would I be doing if I was actually trying to succeed and win this match? I don't think that that's there with her yet. I think that and I have nothing to base this on, so take it with a grain of salt. I think that she is one of the people that if you laid the match out for her, like, hey, we're going to do this, and this, she would just memorize it and do it. That's what I think that she's at with her wrestling career. But, yeah, all of that to say is WoW has an interesting hodgepodge of experience levels. And I know when they said that on TV with them before, they said that like it was a good thing. Like, oh, yeah, we got people from all over. Some people who've been wrestling for 20 years. Some people who are wrestling for 6 months. I don't know if that's necessarily what I would be proud of unless that person who was wrestling for 6 months just is an absolute phenom or something like. And you do get that. I mean, let's not discount that. There's some people who haven't wrestled at all who got into it and like just took to it like a duck to water. Gianni, I don't think has any sort of wrestling background to her other than her being in WoW. I have not been able to find that. If you have it, then show me. I would love to see it. But I don't think that she has any background beyond WoW. But she also does not wrestle a style that she wouldn't be able to handle right now. Is very, I can't even really say it without sounding it. I'm not trying to be insulting, but is essentially pretty basic. And she's one of those people that, and I've said it with a few, and I will add her into that list. I think that wrestling for her elsewhere all due respect to WoW, her wrestling somewhere else and getting the experience of being in another wrestling ring with other people and having to think about what she's doing, when she's doing it, and how she's doing it, the psychology, if you will, would help her a lot. I think that she has the means to get there. Whether she will do it or not, time will tell. So anyhow, I guess we should cover the short match. The match starts off with Sasha Sparks getting in the ring with BK Rhythm. They had the respective starts for their two teams. Rhythm being, I would think, the most experienced of the six. Because I don't think Campanelli had any wrestling experience before then. Pep Riley, I'd already just addressed. Ariel Sky's about a year, a little bit more. Sasha Sparks I just talked about, probably a good 2. Boogie probably has none. Gianni has about as much as she's been given within this show. So even though she's maybe wrestled for 2 years, she probably has like 10 matches underneath her. So make of that what you will. So of all of the people here, I would say that Rhythm is the most experienced. I don't know if she's good enough to help carry the entirety of a 6-person tag, but it is what it is. So anyhow, Sparks gets in and she does some nice head scissors and then another body scissors into an arm drag. I mean, if I can borrow a line from the great Brian Last when he was talking about AEW wrestlers, because I think it fits here to some degree. This was like an aggressive tumbling routine. At least for between Sasha Sparks and seeing Pep Riley, it was like an aggressive tumbling routine. It was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to flip over you. I'm going to get your head scissors in. I'll make a tag. Then Pep Riley comes in. She'll do a cartwheel. Then she'll jump on you. It was seemingly a lot of moves to be able to show that I can do the moves. Like, there was no real reason for her to do a cartwheel, and her being Pep Riley. But she just did it just to, put herself in a position to come off a high, I can't say high cross, a low cross body. And she always has a very stern look on her face. I don't know if she's concentrating on what she has to do next, or she's just trying to figure out, okay, I got to look mean and aggressive or whatever. Boogie is the opposite of that, where she almost always looks like she has some smile on her face. And she's just constantly dancing around and whatnot. I was like, she doesn't come off as a wrestler to me. She just comes off like, all right, this is the character that I'm playing. And even when she's in trouble, there's a smile there. If you look at the clip of where Sky gets injured, and we'll get to that, just before she goes out, it's like Boogie's smiling after she takes a hit, and it's almost like she's like, oh my gosh, that hurt, ha ha ha, let me roll out. It's just silly, and I don't know where she's trying to go with this. The team of the Brat Pack is supposed to be heel, but we've not established that with Jay Boogie, nor has she really done anything that would place her in the position of being a heel. Pep Riley seems like she's there to just be thrown and bumped around, and that might make sense considering that she's a stunt woman. Maybe they're just like, all right, well, you just sit there and take the moves. Gianni put Pep Riley down in the safest way possible. She ain't spike her into the match. She got her down, and then I was, like, all right, I'm just going to ease you down as best way as I can and make it look like I slammed you. So Riley is in here, and she is taking the bulk of the pain, bruise, and agony. BK Rhythm got him in what looked like it was going to be a sidewalk slam. Then she just kind of threw her down. She being BK Rhythm gave maybe the most aggressive looks of somebody like, I'm trying to actually win this, than anybody in the ring. And I guess that goes back to, well, she is the veteran of the pack. She throws Riley into the turnbuckles, charges in, gets caught with a boot. Riley then comes off with the high cross body. Pep Riley makes the tag to Ariel Sky, who cartwheels herself into the ring and does a nice clothesline again. The cartwheel's probably unnecessary. And that was the point where I'm like, Boogie looks like she just took the hit like, oh, my gosh, my back. I got to roll out of here. That was fun. It doesn't seem like she has a lot of urgency in her demeanor. Unfortunately, this is the point in the match where it went awry. Ariel Sky goes up to the second rope. She comes off on Gigi Gianni. She essentially looking to do a head scissors, but basically powerbombed herself onto the mat without tucking her chin. So her shoulders and her back didn't take her. The back of her head did. And that kind of put her into where we got her at this point, where she was loopy. I guess that's the best way to put it. I will also make a statement for the referee Scheinberg, because I give him a lot of crap. I do, and I'm not going to change my mind that I think in terms of, and I say in terms of him calling the match, he oftentimes seems like he's just allowing stuff to happen. Just stands off in the corner, just constantly waving his arms like, hey, don't do that. Get down. No, hey, stop it. That seems to be his demeanor mostly. But he did the right thing here. And there are some people who like, oh, he took too long. No, he didn't. He did not take too long. Scheinberg got down there and started asking her, is she okay, the moment that he noticed that. And he needs to be credited for that. He needs to be credited for making sure that she was okay. Like I said, he didn't waste any time there. There was no stall. There was no, let me stand back and look around. He got down there and he started asking, hey, are you all right? Gets her hands, checks on her. And I'm sure, like a lot of wrestlers, Sky probably tried to power through that. She probably tried to, I'm okay, I think I could do it, just, whatever the case may be. This is just me guessing. I'm not in the ring, I don't know. But I know a lot of wrestlers tend to do things like that. They're like, oh, no, I can finish. Well, she tried to finish, and then that's where Scheinberg, I think, noticed like, okay, no, I'm stopping this. And again, good call on him. And nobody in that locker room, Ariel Sky included, should be giving him crap over it. His job outside of the TV performance, and we're not talking about the TV performance, the referee's job in a pro wrestling environment still carries the real job of, let me make sure that no one here is killing each other or causing each other permanent harm or maiming the other person. That is what you're there to do. Not just play the part of it. It's a fine line, but they have to do it. So she gets up and she tries to get Gianni into the corner. She being Ariel Sky. Pronouns. I mean, Gianni was probably stalling for a while before that happened because she had a rear chin lock on her and whatnot. I don't know what Jay Boogie was doing because she was in the ring standing off in the corner for some reason. Scheinberg again, like, hey, look, you got to go. Get out of the ring. So bravo to him on that for at least trying to implement some rules. This is where it gets, it's not nasty, but it's just awkward and just terribly, uncomfortable to see her like this. Ariel Sky's balance is just a wreck at this point. She tries to get Gianni and shoot her off, but the rhythm there, the balance that she had is just gone. The second that she spun around to shoot Gianni off into the ropes, which she went into the turnbuckle, she lost her balance and she had to tag out. And that was where Scheinberg came over there and he called the match. He took it and he's like, that's it, we're done. And to his credit, right call. Absolute right call to do. Sometimes you got to protect the performer from the performer. She was at a point that she could barely even get out of the ring on her own power. She just, I don't know if officially she was knocked out. That would be my guess. So, I mean, just basing it on what I see, I don't have any reports in front of me that says, oh, yeah, she was concussed and this, that, and the other. But just based on what I see, it doesn't look like she knew where she was, at least for a little while. I think she got it back at some point, but at least for a little while, it looked like her equilibrium was off. She couldn't really stand. When I see people that look like that, like there was a glaze over her eyes and her face. With like she wasn't sweating profusely, but there was a sweat there. And when I see people look like that, I'm like, oh man, they need to throw up or something. Like they look sick. And I'm not saying that she looked bad or that she was green in the face or anything like that. She just looked like if she had been trying to do any more moves, running around, spinning, doing all this stuff, she probably would have threw up in that ring. That's just my guess. And I don't mean to make light of it, but this is where it was with her, and it was very obvious. Everybody that was in the room with me that saw it all felt like, ooh, oh man, did she really hurt herself? That was real, So it wasn't any surprise that they turned around like, okay, look, we got to call the match. There is always the argument of what do you do in this situation when you're the promoter, but those decisions are made in an instant. The referee had to make that decision. Hey, we're going to call this match. We're done. We'll be finished with this. And I agree with that decision. Now, if McLean decided that, oh, hey, let me pull you over to the side, we'll get the match restarted, we'll just sub out Sky for Campanelli or something like that, then they probably could have done it. But that also is going to take away whatever angle or storyline that they were trying to present with Coach being kind of subbed out of her own group would have been, pretty much hung to dry. And I think that it may still be that way. Time will tell. But the other thing that I've noticed with some comments that people made about this is questioning whether it was a work, saying that, like I said before, that Scheinberg didn't get over there too soon. They felt like he was slow getting there. I honestly do not think that it was anything that anybody did. Things happen. Honestly, things happen. It's just... I know people do not regard wrestling as a sport, but it still contains a lot of sport element. And those things will happen in any competitive environment, whether that's basketball, football, baseball, you name it. The things go happen. You can have somebody who's a world-class pitcher one day just be off and just nail somebody in the shoulder. or hit him in the shin, which doesn't feel good because they fired that thing like a rocket. But it doesn't mean that he was untrained and didn't know he just might have had a bad throw at that particular instance. My personal theory, and I'm only going off of what I see like everybody else. Sky and Gianni are about the same height. It's not to say that you can't do these moves to people that are your size or your height. However, given that she has... I'm trying to find the right word because I don't want to say lack of experience. She's been doing this for a while. Let me put it this way. Given that she is not as an accomplished veteran as some of her colleagues within that roster, she may not have found what works for her in that situation. That situation being you're doing a hurricanrana or a head scissors to somebody who's basically the same size, which may not give you enough swing room when you come down to not hit the mat. This isn't the first time that she's done the move, and she's done it successfully. couple of times. So this came off to me more like a miscalculation rather than a gross error in the ring. And it could have just been, an error of seconds. Not something that was like, I stepped back or I didn't take it right or whatever. I don't think Gianni took it wrong. I don't think that Sky executed it wrong. It was just, for whatever reasons, between the two of them, the timing of that just did not work. And if I were somebody that was in that room with her later on to give any advice if I was asked, I would say save it. Save that move for when you have somebody in there that can take it properly and give you what you need. A chainsaw, a beast, Holiday, Jesse Jones. Notice everybody I named is taller than Gianni and in some cases significantly stronger. So they would be able to base you properly, and you can do that. And at the same time, it's a move that is designed as a move of leverage. When you're smaller, you have to be quicker. You got to do these leverage moves. You got to get things that will hurt the bigger opponent. With Gianni, it wasn't really necessary. Would it have looked cool? Yeah, it would have looked cool. But sometimes we do things in wrestling rings that are not necessary. I will tell this story and then I will move on. And this is just to illustrate the point that sometimes even people who are experienced will do things and just not think about the circumstances or whatever the case may be, and they may hurt themselves. When I was shooting for APCW, there was a tag team match that I was ringside for and covering. And getting to the point of it, it was the Dirty Blondes who went on to MLW for a brief period of time as part of Rob Fuller's stable. And they were taking on what was soon to become the Fight Club. At the time, they were the Carolina Fight Club. Without bringing up his name, because I guess he wouldn't care at this point. Eric, you can go find this if you want. But he had gained weight. I don't think I'm telling anything that he's not aware of. He had gained weight at this point. And I didn't know that he was a smaller guy because this is like this third time maybe I've been around him. But he could still do things that he was doing when he was a smaller guy, including doing a dive through the ropes. But in this particular instance, I think he had a knee brace on. And that brace did not work well. Either it was a very heavy knee brace or a very heavy knee pad. Either way, what happened is that they got the opponents out of the ring, and he was getting ready to do a dive. Ran off the opposite ropes, ran towards the ropes where the heels were, jumped through, and the knee brace hooked onto the second rope. Pulled him backwards and threw him down head first into the concrete. He didn't get knocked out cold, but it did stop him, much like what we saw here, for a little while. This is where that wrestling experience will come into play, because his partner essentially had to get themselves disqualified just to finish the match. Like, he just started hammering, took the fight with one of them off to the side and whatnot, and just started brawling, because whatever it is that we had planned is out the window now. And so it finished with a double count out, but you get the point of what I'm saying. At that point, and this needs to be illustrated here to get the point across, that was 10 years of experience that he had before that match. 10 years. He had been doing that for, so this is not lack of experience. Things just happen sometimes. And I'm glad that he survived it. It was one of the nastiest things that I saw in front of me in the wrestling ring. It's like hearing a watermelon splat open. And then, of course, he gets up and he's bloody. He was able to get himself back together, and he had a good run with that promotion following that. He was one of their top tag teams, and then later on one of their top heels. So I don't doubt that Ariel Sky will be able to come back from it eventually. And keep in mind, and this is the important part of this, that was done in December. This was taped in December. So I would imagine if there were any real hardcore consequences that came from this, we probably would have known about it by now. I would think so. But the match in and of itself, what can you say? It was a no contest. You can't really judge it. I really can't even judge this show. I mean, I would say this show is incomplete. I can't say it was good. I can't say it was bad. It's just, the show is what the show is. And I will reiterate, Scheinberg, the referee that I give the most grief to, did a phenomenal job in making sure that young lady was okay. So, bravo to him. Go watch some wrestling tapes with some other referees in it, but bravo to him. Wild comes back after the next segment. After the commercial, they're still checking on Ariel Sky. Dave McClain congratulates the ref for calling the match. And as he should. Like I said, I stand by that. If anybody in that backstage or whatever decide to give him grief, that's the point where somebody should step up and say, no, he did his job. We could fix everything else, but he did his job. Her safety comes first. Now, they do have a clip of video, I guess, some of which did not take place on there, where you got Dave McClain at the commentating table, like, safety comes first. Let's make sure she's out of there before we get the next match in. And, Ariel Sky, everybody. And then they start chanting, Ariel. So where this goes as far as WOW is concerned, we don't know, because this all took place during a marathon taping. So I am going to guess that for the remainder of the episodes that they taped here, which is probably, they probably start showing these tapings, I would say, by the beginning of this month, maybe. So we probably wouldn't see Ariel again maybe until the next set of tapings comes through. And if I'm guessing, that'll be the end of March, beginning of April. That should be about the timeline. I'm guessing. And that would mean that she is going to be off Team Spirit for the next couple of weeks for the foreseeable future. Because I can't imagine that anybody with any sense would just put her back in like the next day, like, yeah, we're going to let you, unless she went to a hospital that night and she got clearance that night. If that happened, then that's a different issue. So, getting off of that, going to the next thing. And bear in mind that this incident pretty much ate up the show after a certain point. It's because they kept coming back to it. And we'll address that also, because there is a match that was advertised, at least as far as the press releases are concerned. And if you go to their media site, it's the match that they show, not the video, but the pictures. It's a match that they show that did make air. And I'll get to that in one moment. So the segment next, following the congratulations of the ref, Wild goes into recapping the issues between the Mother Truckers and Miami Sweet Heat by showing the last few minutes of the four-way. I wrote down this is probably filler considering other earlier events, and that's exactly what it was, because it wasn't like they showed a clip. They basically showed you half of the match, because the matches are never long, and the clip was like 3 minutes or something along those lines. This became filler. The question is, why did it become filler? I don't know. The press release advertised Holiday had taken on Katrina Jinx, and that match did not air. My best guess, when I see things like that, when they have a match that's like, okay, we're not putting this on, because I can't see why they would not. You could have still gotten that match in there, because I cannot possibly imagine that match was long. They probably very likely could have gotten that match in and shown it without doing doing what they did, like taking this clip and the promo and filling out another quarter of the hour recapping the injury when they could have had a fresh match in there. But my guess is either out of sequence to anything that they were trying to do, it was non-consequential and they wanted to cover this instead, where it was just a cold match and it was Holiday and Katrina Jinx, or the match was bad and they didn't want to air it. One of those three. So the next segment is Sweet Heat having a promo at the bottom of the Wild Steps, talking about the issues with the truckers, saying they're going to get their frustrations out. And they're not addressing the audience in this. They're just addressing each other, which is kind of weird, and we're eavesdropping because I can never tell what it is that they're trying to do with this camera at the bottom of the Wild Steps. Sometimes they look at the camera and they're addressing us, the audience. We're saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it so-and-so, and it's going to happen tonight. And then they have moments like this where they're just talking to each other, and it's like the camera isn't there. So they have that, and we're just kind of eavesdropping, and they go back to blaming David McLane. This seems like it's becoming a running thing. It's happening more and more often where it's like, David McLane stopped us from doing this, and it's all David McLane's fault. David McLane, again, does not need to be all over the show like that. You know, but what is the payoff for them blaming David McLane? What can they do? They can't get him in the ring. And he doesn't have a proxy to get in there for him. And if it did, what difference does it make? It's the same thing. He's never going to get in a situation, even if he had a proxy, where that proxy is going to lose anything significant for David McLane. So it's not like, well, we're going to put the Wild promotion on the line against Lana Starr, who's been calling herself the true executive producer for 20 years. I can't imagine that's going to happen. If it does, then I'll watch it with morbid curiosity, but I just don't see that as a thing. This continues on, and it goes into Miami Sweet Heat coming out with the other members of the Fabulous Four against the Mother Truckers. Now, this is another one of those things like, I don't know who put this together or why they did this, and we're not talking about whether the match is good or bad. But we're talking about you putting a stipulation on here that is completely unnecessary. This is labeled as a no DQ match. So let's start with that. It is labeled a no DQ match, and you've got all 5 members of the Fabulous Four, Lana Starr included, coming out of the ringside. You got Miami Sweet Heat, Lana Starr's out of the ringside with them, and then Vicky Lynn and Penelope Pink go sit at the commentating booth. This is now becoming redundant. It's almost like, if something's going on with the Fabulous Four, they have to have one of their people sitting in the commentating booth. And when they do sit into the commentating booth, it's an open invitation for them to attack the person after the match is done. Like there's no surprise here because it's happened 2 or 3 times with them. They'll come in there, they'll sit down, they'll do that, and then, I got to do something. And then they'll go attack. It's not spread out enough for this to be surprising. The Mother Truckers charge the ring, and, this kicks off with some level of aggression. I have to give them that. Although, in my view, the aggression is misplaced. It wasn't Miami Sweet Heat that did this to them. It was Vicky Lynn McCoy and it was Penelope Pink. Those were the 2 that did the actual assault that they were talking about. Now, if you're just listening to the promo makes it sound like Miami Sweet Heat did it themselves, even though the video footage shows otherwise. So, this takes place. You have to give the Truckers credit for the aggression because they should have that. And I'm not going to go into the play-by-play of it, but all of this is it's a standard wrestling match. This is not a no DQ match. The no DQ stipulation only serves a singular purpose, and we will get to that later on. So Pink and Vicky Lynn go sit at the commentator booth, and they're doing their guest commentator, and they're talking about cheating, even though this is supposed to be a no DQ match, so I don't know what the cheating is supposed to be. I still love Vicky Lynn McCoy on the microphone. I think that she is fantastic as a heel commentator. I wish they would just go ahead and make her a heel commentator, especially while she's got the neck brace on and she's got an excuse. I mean, I know that would never happen because this is already taped, but I wish they would have done it because it seems like it's just such an easy thing for her to do. And if they just let her do what she's doing there, she would get herself over and she would get the Fabulous Four over and basically every other heel in that company. And she would probably get them all over just in how she talks. If it was her and Nigel saying, Nigel, the babyface announcer, and she's the heel. But that's not going to happen. So, she's a great heel commentator, though. So, anyway, one of the high spots of the match, it wasn't the finish for some reason, was the coast to coast done by Laurie, or was it Laurie? I can never remember. Yeah, Laurie. The one with the dark hair. She gets up on the top rope and she goes from coast to coast, one turnbuckle to the next, and nails. I was about to say Amazing Maria, but she doesn't go by Amazing Maria there. She is Big Rig Betty. It looked great on camera. You have to give her that. It looks fantastic on camera because the cameraman was in the absolute right place for this to happen. Now, I don't know if she was supposed to be the legal person. I don't even know if she connected or not because of the way that the camera was set. But it looked fantastic. So anyway, she comes off, flies, and I guess it does help that the ring is smaller than the standard wrestling ring. So she was able to clear it a little easier. This is a match that should have been a little bit more heat behind it, although much like the main event, I think it does suffer from the shadow of the incident that took place earlier in the episode. These two are two of the most winningest teams that WOW's got. Mother Truckers very rarely lose. I mean, I think they've lost like twice in the times they've been there. I had the record sitting in front of me on one of these earlier podcasts. But they very rarely lose. And then you're talking about them in the ring with Miami Sweet Heat, who's been, the two-time WOW champion, probably the longest or most proficient tag team champions that WOW has ever had. I'm sure the Tonga Twins don't like hearing that, but, I mean, the facts are the facts. Miami Sweet Heat is probably the best tag team that company has ever seen. And even they aren't, exceptionally polished, but they get better every time they go in there, and if they still are working on the indies, then they will continue to get better. So all of this leads to, and again, keep in mind, this is supposed to be a no disqualification match. No one's used any weapons. Everyone's tagging in and out. No one's just running in and doing anything. They're talking about cheating on the commentating. So I didn't understand. It's like, why is this supposed to be some sort of no DQ match? Nothing is happening here that needs this to be no disqualification. Everybody is following the rules. I mean, for all intents and purposes, the Mother Truckers are following the rules. Miami Sweet Heat is following the rules. So then we get to the end of the match, and then we find out why they did this as a no disqualification match. Big Rig Betty makes the tag out to Holly Swag. Holly comes off the top rope, gets a double crossbody on both members of Miami Sweet Heat, and then she goes into the old cleanup routine. She's taking on them both. All right? And she's doing a good job with it. She goes for the cover on Laurie. Lindsay breaks it up. And then at some point, they put both of the truckers down to the floor, hard camera side. All right? So keep that in mind. Or the side by the commentators. We'll call it that. So they go out to the floor, And they do that. Then the twins decide, all right, hey, well, let's get ready. We're going to do a double dive. Here's why, and this is the only reason that this thing is a no disqualification match. Both of the truckers conveniently pull out signs from underneath the ring at that side. One of them has a sign that says watch for trucks, and the other one says honk honk. David McLane is selling this like, oh, well, some fans slid up some signs. I don't know how stupid that is because, like, are you telling me that two fans came in here with two street signs and no one noticed that? Up until this moment. Like, no one noticed they was in here with street signs. One of which is clearly fictional. Like, what sign, what purpose does a sign that says honk honk serve? Other than the fact that, hey, the truckers like to say this all the time. So, Miami Sweet Heat run off. They try to do the dive through the ropes, and they both get hit in the head with these two signs. Hence the no disqualification match. They get tossed back in. 1, 2, 3, we win. And that was it. This was a absolutely unnecessary stipulation applied to this match. 95% of it was a standard wrestling match right up until that last 5%. I wouldn't even say that. Right up until the last 1%. 99% of this match is all standard. And then it just like, all right, well, we got to know disqualification so we can use these signs. I would have accepted it if they had cheated. And all it would have taken for them to get away with it and the fans accepting it is if Miami Sweet Heat was constantly cheating, using the advantage of Lana Starr, choking them out behind the ref's back, distracting them, doing stuff, using illegal tactics. And then you get to the point where the trucker's like, all right, we had enough. All right, you want to do this? Fine. And then they beat them at their own game. That would have been fine. Here it was just, I don't want to take Cornette's line, but I have to take it. This is lazy booking. It was just lazy. It was lazy that they put this on there just to accommodate this one spot. When they could have worked around it, and all four of them know how to work around it. So I don't know why they would have agreed to do that. They should have just said, no, we can make this work. But they didn't. So anyway, after the match, wouldn't you know it, Penelope Pink and Vicky Lynn McCoy go running into the ring. Surprise, surprise. They grab a chair, or not a chair, a trash can. I don't know where these perfectly unused trash cans reside in WoW that they're always able to get them. Like, they never have anything in it. They don't even have paper in it. It's just an absolutely perfectly clean trash can that just happened to be there that one of them picked up, and then they go in there and they go attacking them. These are some of the safest shots I've ever seen in wrestling. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but, they hitting them on the hip and, stuff like that. Penelope Pink does a complete shot. And I don't know why she did this because it looked like she did this on Holly Swag, and it looked like she missed that thing by a mile. Like, Penelope Pink was the one that went through the trash can, not Swag. So the feud of the Mother Truckers and the Fab Four members will continue, but the Truckers gain another victory in their long line of victories. I don't think that's going to end anytime soon. Whether they get a title match or not, who knows? But yeah, as I said, the only reason that a no disqualification stipulation existed was to accommodate that spot in the match. They go to commercial like right mid of the beatdown. You can hear Dave McLane still talking, and they fade him out, and he goes to break. I was like, well, okay, that's different. So I can't get on there for not having that. I actually was a little surprised that they did something different. They come back next segment, and as Dave McLane, he does a dramatic update of Ariel Sky and her concussion, which I know that's just how David talks. I probably would have asked somebody else to do it, the voiceover, And maybe he doesn't perceive himself that way, but sometimes, and I'll say sometimes, the way David McLane expresses certain things and Wild always makes him sound like he's in showbiz mode, if that makes sense. It always sounds like he's trying to give the inflection of the situation, which isn't a bad thing, but when it's overly done, it feels too showbiz, too dramatic, too overproduced. When he's going like, and guys, Ariel Sky, she's down, and we know that she's got a concussion, and we'll be back with wow. And, it's kind of like that. It's very dramatic. I mean, it gets the point across, but it's very dramatic. But this also goes into what's the future of Team Spirit. This was a bad debut for Sasha Sparks. What can I say? Not her fault, but it was a bad debut. Because unfortunately, she didn't get the opportunity to do much. She was in there and she got a chance to do something, but she didn't do much. They do an ad for next week in a trios tournament. So that's going to continue on. And then we get to the main event. This is where you need to have paid attention to what was being said rather than what you see. And then you would understand why this kind of, it didn't bother me, but why it was like, okay, something happened here and they're just, not taking care of it. So anyway, Princess Ozzy and Abilene Maverick. The commentators talked about Ozzy's promo from several weeks back, and that right there is a problem in my view. It's like, okay, we're being asked to keep up and keep these things in our mind. This promo that we probably saw 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, sometime 10 weeks back, and still have some kind of feeling of I'm ready to see this. I really didn't have any skin in this fight. It was just a match to me, and it shouldn't feel that way. They try to hype it up like this is the Wild World's Championship, and this just felt like another match. It didn't feel like any sort of attempt for redemption out of Princess Ozzy. It didn't feel like any sort of major threat to Abilene Maverick. It didn't feel like this was something that she wanted and that she was so strong about getting that, she talked about it week in and week out or whatever. And I mean Princess Ozzy. I don't even think they had a video package to kind of illustrate that. It was all left to the commentators to bring up and talk about and address. Well, Princess Ozzy wanted to have this match, and she felt like she didn't get what she deserved out of it, and out of being the champion, and so on and so forth. I will say this for Dave McLane. I like that he actually said she didn't get what she wanted, and I have the confetti set and it's ready to go should she win. I was like, okay, that's good. Because it doesn't come off like, well, we just have confetti and we know that this is going to happen. He said that the confetti is set and ready to go. So I was like, all right, this means that we do this for the wins, for the championships, for the big moments, and when these things take place, it's not just we've pre-planned this. Now, we know that it's pre-planned, but it didn't present like it was pre-planned. So I thought that was a nice touch. Abilene Maverick, in my view, well, first, I like that they have worked to, or at least it sounds like she's worked to use the VIP as a new moniker. Much better sounding than the Governor's Daughter. Governor's Daughter just sounds silly. But Abilene Maverick in this, it comes off much better in my opinion. The VIP. Sounds important. Much more important. But she doesn't elicit, in my view, a lot of emotion out of the crowd. I don't know if the crowd cared one way or the other, quite honestly. I mean, they know that they're supposed to cheer for Princess Ozzy, but it didn't, to me, it didn't feel like they were driving like Ozzy win it, like they wanted her to do it. It just didn't feel like there was anything to this match. It was just a match that happened to have the title on the line. The commentators started reinforcing that Ozzy had been cheated. Again, a couple of weeks ago, Dave McClain said that, oh, no, Abilene Maverick did it within the rules. When it was Vicky Lynn that said that Abilene Maverick cheated, the story changed to, well, she did it within the rules. She was perfectly within her rights to go and pin her like that and, so on and so forth. Then you get back to this one, and she's cheated. And before Vicky Lynn McCoy had that, it was all you cheated up until something else, then it flipped back. Any way the wind blows, and he needs to stop that. This is where I keep coming back to this. Like it's more and more David McClain going in any direction that he chooses to go. Whether it makes sense or not, find the story that the commentators are supposed to tell and stick to that story. And if they went in the line of the commentators are the unbiased voice, although we tilt towards the babyface in terms of they're trying to do this right, they're trying to play by the rules, they're great athletes, and so on and so forth, you call out the facts. They wouldn't be in this situation of she cheated, no, she didn't, she did. And just doing that amongst themselves, they wouldn't be in that situation. They just stuck to the facts of it. He could say that she was cheap. And that was something I learned when doing commentary. I was like, there's a difference between cheating and being cheap. You call out when they're being cheap. She should have known that Abilene Maverick was in the building. She got a fast one in on him. Penelope Pink had Princess Ozzy down, and, she got shoved out, and Abilene Maverick took advantage of the situation. What a cheap way to win. You illustrate that. She's being cheap. She did not cheat. She didn't take it. She didn't break the rules. She was well within the rules. Dave McClain said she was well within the rules up until he didn't. So things like that. The story being told there is making Ozzy sound bitter and jealous. I don't know if that's the direction that she's going, but when they keep carrying on, because they are providing the soundtrack, for lack of a better term, to this story, when they keep going on about she didn't get what she deserved, or she felt like she didn't get what she deserved, she didn't have the confetti, she's upset that she didn't get her opportunity for, this or that or the other. When it keeps going on like that, yeah, it does make her sound bitter and jealous. Even though the whole match that she presented was her idea in the first place. Which I was like, this makes her sound stupid. And nothing they've done from that point on has done anything to change my mind about that. Not her with Candy Crush. That made us look self-centered and not concerned about her friend up until she didn't have anything else to lose. Not this, because it makes her sound bitter and jealous. Not beforehand, when she made the challenge when she didn't even know what the challenge was. And not when she took the match, because it's like, why are you doing this? And nothing that Princess Ozzy has done from that point to present has made me feel like she made any smart decisions. It's all been just ridiculous decisions and bad presentation. It should also be pointed out, and this has nothing to do with the match, but this is why I say you have to pay attention to what they said. Nigel Zane, I was going to say the commentators, but specifically Nigel Zane said this, is that hopefully the Tonga Twins get their rematch for their titles. Now, this goes away to support what I said last episode when I showed you the side-by-side of the Tonga Twins and Last Call and how the finish that they had like a month and a half ago got recycled into that match to give the Tonga Twins the win. I'm not saying that is what happened. I'm not saying that Last Call actually won and then they decided that they had to change direction because Wrecking Ball left. But I would absolutely believe it if that was the story that came out. Especially when I hear this in the commentary. Now, normally I would say, I mean, yeah, it still have been quality checked. Somebody should have been there. But this is less egregious than when they have an advertisement for a match that's taking place next week that absolutely destroys the ending of the main event, like they had with that championship challenge, where the ad told you who won and who the champion was going to be before she even showed up. But this is one of those things. I'm like, okay, I can understand how that might have slipped under the radar because it is just the one line. It's not like it's peppered out throughout the show. But at the same time, it does support and reinforce the idea that something took place on this show that the fans are not aware of. I mean, forget me putting the thing side by side. If you were actually listening to the commentary and you heard them saying, hopefully they can get their titles back, you might be left kind of bewildered. You might be, hey, what? Titles back? When did they lose them? Last time I saw them, they won. They beat Last Call. When did they lose the belts? Why are they needing a return match to win them back? So that's one of those things that it should have been quality check. Admittedly, I understand how that can slip by, but it should be quality check, especially for this show. This match is a solid match. It's less gimmicky than, most other things. And going off into being gimmicky and WoW is a very easy thing to do. Because everybody is built off of, the surface level character that they're portraying. But because she is no longer the governor's daughter and she's not, coming out here and pulling up in the limo, my daddy, mommy, whatever, or mom or whatever. She's not doing anything like that. And I'm not saying that's what she did before. I'm just, illustrating the point. And Princess Aussie isn't possessed by voodoo powers anymore and, things like this. This was just a match between two capable wrestlers. The downside of this match is everything that I've already said. It is a match that didn't have any heat to it. There was no build to this. So I don't know why anybody would care beyond the fact that they are trying to build that and get you concerned about it or care that she wins within the course of the match, which is possible, but they should have built to this. I don't understand why they constantly put Princess Aussie's name with former Wild World Champion. Who does that? Why are you doing that? Let's continuously remind people that she lost it. Like, people used to say that, like, stop telling everybody that you're a 3-time champion. It just reminds people that you lost the title. Like, I'm less bothered by that than this. And I can admit that it's probably just me. But if this was my show, I was like, take that out. Take that out. I would be in my editing bay telling whoever put that on there, take that nonsense off. I don't want to remind people that Princess Aussie lost the title. I can bring up that she's a former Wild champion, but we don't need to have that as part of her lower third every time that she walks out here. I mean, if you're going to do that with her, you got to do that with everybody. Former Wild champion, the Beast. Former Wild Tag Team champions, Team Spirit. If you're going to do it with her, why not with everybody? So, no, just lose the lower third. We don't need that. We just need Princess Aussie, and if the commentator team is any good, they would tell you, and she's a former Wild champion looking to get it back. You make that part of the story. But anyway, it's a solid match. One of the parts of the match that I really liked is the sell for the super kick that Abilene Maverick took. I mean, she went down like a tree. It was... Now, that's one of those angles that I can't really tell whether she was actually connected with it. But they did a fine job with each other here in the match. It is just a shame that there was no build to this. And then you add to the fact that it's a shame that it was living in the shadow of earlier events in the episode. And that's what it was. This match was in the shadow of what took place earlier in the night. Because whatever time that this program could have dedicated to making sure that the main event had some level of desire or heat to it that people would want to see who won, that was all taken away. It was all taken away by, so much time and effort being dedicated to, and I'm not, minimizing the incident or the knockout. Not minimizing that, but yeah, it clearly took something off of it. Took a little steam out of that. So at the end of the match, you got Aussie. She does a picture-perfect head scissors with Abilene Maverick. And which is kind of ironic considering what happened earlier. She does a picture-perfect head scissors with Abilene Maverick, and then she sets her up for her Aussie cutter. The Aussie cutter for her is her setup for her finish, which is the frog splash. So she hits her with the Aussie cutter, then she goes up to the top rope. It's like, all right, she's about to come off with the frog splash. I am so thankful to Nigel Zane for not beating the cutter from down under. The cutter from down under. I'm so thankful that he does not do that. He calls it, and then he just moves it. Yeah, she got hit with the cutter from down under or whatever, He doesn't turn it into some, try to make it some sound bite. So she hits this. She goes up to the top rope, and then Abilene Maverick rolls out. She rolls away. She gets herself out of the range of getting hit with the frog splash, which you have to say, smart thing to do, with her. Although you would assume that the cutter would have knocked her out so that she could get that in. But, we take this for what it is. Aussie climbs down off of the top rope. She goes out to the outside. She gets Abilene Maverick. And she is trying to get it back in the ring. Why? Because, you cannot win the championship on the outside on the floor. She puts Maverick in first. Maverick stops her when she comes to the ropes. She tries to shove her. The referee, Aussie, was able to stop herself. Then there's an exchange of holds, a rear waist lock, a reversal of the rear waist lock, a roll up, feet on the ropes by Abilene Maverick. 1, 2, 3. She gets the win, and that's that. She retains the championship. This is a good match and probably could have used more time, in my opinion. There's a couple of times in WOW's program where I'm like, the short time limit understandably is there because it's only an hour show. There's only so much that they can do. But I also feel there are and there have been several matches that WOW has had on their program that should have gotten more time for them to tell the story between the ropes, tell the story bell to bell. Some of these matches should be short, and they are comfortable in their length, and they had stuff leading into it that helped get the point across, whether that be a backstage segment, whether that be an interview, even though they do very few of them, whether that be a promo before or after the match. Here, all we had was a promo beforehand, and we got the commentators talking throughout it. I think, given the quality of wrestler that both of these ladies are, Abilene Maverick being a former NWA Women's World Champion, current WOW Champion, Princess Aussie being trained, I believe, by Lance Storm and having wrestled in several locations across the Indies. I think they're both good enough to where they could have gotten this match where it needed to be if they had more time to tell the story and the struggle that Ozzy was trying to do to get that championship back. But as it is, they didn't have enough time to do that to get people to where they, were desperately wanting to see Princess Ozzy to win. Because there was nothing else there that would have given you that. It was only the match. And with the match being cut short, well, I shouldn't say cut short, but with the match being about, what would I say? It probably was somewhere in the nature of about 8 minutes. Or 8 to 9 minutes, if I were guessing. Because I think they had about 3 minutes worth of intro, and you could trim off another 30 seconds or so at the end off of a video that was close to 12 minutes. So, yeah, somewhere about there. 8 or 9 minutes worth of match. Which isn't a bad time for a match, but considering that this is their Wild Championship, considering that this was the rematch that she never got, and that she was coming in for to try to regain the coveted Wild Championship, that she was looking for her moment. This could have been built a little heavier. This could have been, the attempt for redemption, the attempt to get back to the top of the mountain to reclaim my throne. That should have been the story here, and Abilene Maverick doing everything that she can to cut it off, to stop her, to prevent this, because it's my time now. You can't have this. You had your moment. But that didn't happen, and as I said, I think that this match suffered from several things. Mostly the time not being there, considering that there was no lead-in. Then you have to add on, there was no lead-in. And then it lives in the shadow of everything that took place earlier in the episode. So I cannot justifiably judge the episode and be like, oh, it was a C or it was a D or it was an F, or this was like an incomplete for me. It's just, they had some good stuff in it, but then they had some nonsensical stuff. The tag team match didn't do anything for me because there was no reason for it to be no DQ, especially when the only reason it was there was because of what I told you, just to have that spot. This main event didn't really do anything for me because there was nothing that made me feel like it was important. And then the first match that they had got cut short, unfortunately, due to injury. So this was a show. That's pretty much all I can say. The commentators start talking about stuff that also I felt poked holes in stories or talked about things unnecessarily. I told you about the Tonga Twins statement, which, like, okay, when did they lose? Maybe a lot of people didn't notice that when they said it, but they said it, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that heard it. And then they said, during the main event that, Americana and Jesse Jones still haven't settled their differences. Or like, what does it take for them to settle it? She's beaten Americana twice. Not just beating her, she's beating her clean. And, she lost in the tag match clean. She lost to her one-on-one, tapped out clean. What else do you need? So this is that point where it started to devolve, where the taping started off strong. I enjoyed that first episode that they came out of the gate with. It felt really fresh and that things were going in a great direction, and now it started to devolve. It started to devolve where the holes of the story are starting to get bigger. It started to devolve in that some of these things don't make sense in terms of why would they do this. The trios thing, specifically Ariel Sky, we're not going to count that. That's not their fault. That's not her fault. That's not Gianni's fault. It's just, it just happens. But the tournament in and of itself, I've lost faith in because they just re-slotted the Mighty Mites. And like I said earlier, it now feels to me that the trophy is become secondary to whatever angles that are existing within the tournament. Whether that be Coach being, slowly morphed out of her group, whether that be exile, with them carrying on about who's the actual leader, whether that be, hey, we got Jay Boogie, who's too stupid to realize that we're heels, just all of the things that they got happening in that. And Las Banditas, we're here and we're the best, even though they've lost multiple times. So that is the entirety of this episode. I don't have anything I can give for it one way or the other. This is just a full review, as clean as I can give it. I've tried to put in some chapter markers so you can get to where you want to get to. And I also need to say I want to thank the people who have gone in and supported and called some of these advertisers that run their ads on our website, WPNWrestling.com, because those help. They really do. I don't think you understand how much they help. So yeah, those help keep this show going. It keeps it afloat, keeps giving me the reason to be able to keep doing it, quite honestly. You can also go to our shop tab on the YouTube channel if you want to buy any merchandise. I've been working on trying to get somebody to produce some new ones. And of course, I talked about having a prize pack, and I found like the first 2-3 things that I can toss into that. So yeah, there's been quite a bit of things that have been going on. We will be tuning in to the next episode of WOW. And also, I'm not writing this. I guess producing would probably be a better thing. Does WOW need competition? That is the question at hand. I might just put that on the YouTube channel, by the way, now that I'm thinking about it. So if you are here and you're listening to it on YouTube, go to our channel page and you can answer the question, does WOW need competition? I only bring that up because I just looked at UWW, Ultimate Women of Wrestling, the other day, and they are like the polar opposite of WOW. They have stronger matches, but everything else in there is just like, holy crap, what are you doing? So does this need to exist? Does WOW need to have competition there to push it to be better? Does UWW need competition so it can be pushed to be better? Or do they just need to hire some people to do the production better? Because whoever it is that's doing it, they need some work. But that's a topic for another day and another time. We will get on that later. So do all the normal YouTube things. For those of you that are on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. The likes help. They've boosted us up in the algorithm. I am actually amazed. But it has helped boost us up in the algorithm a bit. Thank you for that. If you are looking to see where everything else that we have here, social media, blogs, videos, podcasts, downloads, etc., WPNWrestling.com. That's WPNWrestling.com. Has all of those things. You can find it there. And of course, like I said, you can go hit our tab and you can shop right there on our YouTube page. So I think that covers everything. So, folks, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for giving me your time and listening to this broadcast. I have carried on a bit longer than I thought that I would. And so on that note, I think it's time to close until the next episode. So until then, this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we'll see you on the next go round. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for everything that you've done to support it. And we will see you on the next show. Or as I should say, my close, we'll see you on the next go round. Take care, everybody.